As we celebrate World Contraception Day today, there's a group of people whose level of vulnerability has been further compounded by the fact that they are living in a zone plagued by socio-political instability, school lockdowns, and limited access to health care. I'm talking about the young women and girls of the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon. So it's a laudable initiative that women, young leaders in these areas have decided to use this day to share their best practices about how they are tackling the problem of reproductive health advocacy, reproductive health rights, reproductive health access among young girls in the Northwest region. A special shout out to Dr. Ngong Jacqueline Shaka, who is pioneering this work through her organization, Youth to Youth. I am Godfrey Esoh, and I'm here today to reflect on this sensitive issue, which for some strange reason, men don't care to talk about. I want to show you that men actually have incredible power to help women stay healthy, stay happy, stay more productive because of the traditional role that a man plays in African society. This role is currently being used negatively, but if we understand the implications of this negative use and we enlighten ourselves about what we all stand to gain if we leverage this power for good, then men will certainly become actors and partners when it comes to reproductive health rights, reproductive health advocacy, and reproductive health access for young African women. Let us look at the traditional role of men when it comes to female sexuality to begin with. It's an unfortunate aspect of African tradition that women are regarded as property. The women's emancipation movement has been gaining ground, and more women are becoming liberated from the clutches of such traditions. But we cannot ignore the fact that even psychologically, most women still see themselves as the property of men, or at best, second-class citizens in their communities that are governed by men. If the women see themselves as property or lower humans, what that implies is that they are also aware that they don't own their bodies. In most cultures, sex, for example, is seen as the man's thing, the man's food. So when a woman is having intercourse, she is doing service to the man. It's not about her own fulfillment. So if women feel that they are the property of the men, and if women feel that their bodies belong to the men, and if women feel that the sexual act is a service to the man, what that means is that women do not have bargaining power to initiate intercourse, and worse still, they do not have bargaining power to decide when or when not to use contraception. The other hindrance is a high rate of illiteracy among African girls and men, which is also compounded by traditional practices. Those practices which believe that only men should be educated because they need to become career people, while the women need to stay at home, mature fast, and get married so that they can continue bearing children and taking care of their home. So the high rate of illiteracy has its root in tradition. And this high rate of illiteracy poses a significant barrier to reproductive health awareness. It poses a significant barrier to reproductive health services, because even where the services are available, women who are not educated may not know that these services are available, or how to access these services, or even why they need these services. So ignorance becomes a high risk factor when it comes to sexual and reproductive health. Now, before we proceed to a few reflection points on how men can turn around and be partners in this movement of empowering young women and advocating for the sexual and reproductive rights of African women, you would naturally ask the question, why should men care? Why do I, Godfrey, care? I'll give you a few instances. One, when a woman gets sick, let's say she catches HIV because of unsafe sexual practices, guess what? She infects men. So should men care? Yes, men should care to keep women healthy so that the men would in turn be healthy. Two, when a woman gets an unplanned pregnancy because she wasn't practicing contraception, well, that unplanned pregnancy implies an unplanned responsibility for the author of that pregnancy. I know there are men out there who know how to flee from responsibilities, but the greater majority will always have a hand in raising that child. Think about the economic and long-term implication of that unplanned responsibility. Now, if you end up not marrying that girl, or if you end up marrying the girl who you otherwise not have married, but you now felt compelled to bring her into your home because you got her pregnant, think about the social and emotional ramifications of that unplanned pregnancy. Also, most girls who get pregnant in their teens drop out of school. For each school dropout, what I see is a lost potential. A potential that affects the entire community. Because this girl, there is no telling whether she would have ended up as a teacher, a doctor, an engineer, a pilot, an entrepreneur, a pastor, or whatever other great work that would have benefited the community. Finally, there is an alarming number of unplanned pregnancies that wind up in unsafe abortions. Again, because of the taboos surrounding the subject and the limited facilities that create conducive environments for girls to be able to handle such challenges. The tragedy is that those high-risk abortions come with consequences. Some women die. Some end up not being able to ever have children again. And maybe you should ask yourself, could this happen to my sister? And if the answer is yes, then now you see that you should care. So if we have agreed that men should care, if we have agreed that men in Africa actually have the greater power to advocate for sexual and reproductive health rights and access for young women, then what can we begin doing right now? My first appeal is to first change your mindset about how you see the woman. The modern African men from my generation moving downward, we clearly have a greater exposure in the world. We clearly are more receptive to the transformation of our cultures to begin treating women as equal partners, because the premise on which our ancient traditions held women as property or as lesser human beings, that premise is false. We now know that it is false. So we can begin a new age in which men embrace women, love women, and treat women as equal partners. If our perception about women changes, then we will be excited about empowering women, giving women the liberty and the freedom to be as free as we, the men, are. And part of that freedom is that women need to also understand that their bodies belong to them and not to the men. It is our culture that has created that false notion. And so it takes that same culture to undo it. The women cannot do it alone. Because if they are trying to do it alone, they will be seen as fighting against the men, fighting against the culture. But if it is the culture that is pioneering the work of giving women's dignity back to them, the work will be a lot easier. So the first thing is waking up to the reality that women are our equal partners. The second thing is helping women to regain their dignity, regain autonomy over their bodies. The third thing we can do is that we can, lift the taboo of sexuality and talk about sexual issues, reproductive health issues, contraception issues. Talk more freely about it in our relationships and in our homes, because it is when there is open communication that awareness grows, confidence grows, better choices are made. The fourth appeal I have for men is you should take the initiative in your relationship to ensure that your partner is using contraception when needed. So if you're practicing, if you are in a relationship where maybe you guys are not yet married, it should be you, the guy, that takes the initiative to use a condom without a woman asking you to. If you are practicing abstinence, even better if you're not yet married. If you're married and you're practicing child spacing, family planning and so on, there's a lot that depends on you, because if you're a man who just you want to have it anytime you want, anywhere you want, the woman will be powerless. But if it's a team effort, if you guys plan it, then you'll be able to accomplish it together. And the good news is that There is a whole array of contraceptive methods ranging from clinical procedures to the abstinence that religious organizations advocate for, depending on which path you are taking. The good news is that the possibilities are many. Your life does not need to change because you are using family planning. It's really the attitude that matters, the education. And we open a door when we begin making it a normal subject in our relationships. Men should not see sex as just an object of pleasure and the woman as the toy on which they derive that pleasure. That is where everything goes wrong, because if you start paying closer attention to the actual relationship, who the woman is, who you are, and what that third personality that bond creates, you realize that you have so much to protect. Your health, your dignity, your finances, all the things that I have outlined in this presentation. And when you look at the big picture, it will really occur to you that becoming a champion for reproductive health access, reproductive health rights for women, it's a very small price to pay for the huge benefits that you will get as a man. Thank you for watching this presentation. I invite you to spread the word and let us create the change.